Hey, warm and friendly hello! Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you. We're going to be joined in segment number 2 by one of our good friends, Curtis Rogers, who does such great work over at 710 Seattle Sports. We're going to be chatting with him about some of the West Coast teams and the struggles that they have been having, to say the least. Certainly have to dive in on UCLA and so much more there. Just look at the landscape of college basketball, a little bit on the Big Ten. We're also going to be just unpacking what we saw here in a very crazy week of college basketball. In the final segment, going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this college basketball Sunday as we hit some bank shots. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of two ways we fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters EM, they mean does not matter. So as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Well, I did not get in any Twitter/X questions today. Boy, did we have a rambunctious college basketball Saturday. Let's take a look back at it, try to find some trends, and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
In terms of the behemoth matchups, you saw Duke take it to Michigan 68-63. The final as Duke was leading by 2 at the half. This was a very high-scoring game to start with, and then sort of died in the second half. Only 63 points in the second half, and Duke, they control the boards. 41-28. Cam Boozer, another double-double, 18 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists, just 1 turnover. For Duke, they do lose a turnover battle in this game, 11-7, but for Michigan, they go just 6 of 25 from three-point range. You did have Yaxel Lendeborg go off for 21 points, but other than Morris Johnson has 13 points, you really didn't have much else. So for Duke, a very nice win for them. And then Arizona, as the underdog against Houston, they go on the road, they get the job done by a count of 73-66, and it has been a really good run against the spread for Arizona this year, as it's been a little bit more wobbly for this Houston team. I've pointed this out quite a bit on the podcast. Not quite the same rebounding team that we've seen in the past for Houston. They do win the overall rebound battle 39-37, and for Arizona, I have to be a little bit concerned that they went 20 out of 31 at the free throw line, but Arizona won the turnover battle 12-5 against a Houston team that they were supposed to be the team that was the better one in terms of taking care of the ball this season. For Arizona, if you're looking at them against the spread, this moved them to 15-11-1, and for Houston, right now they're checking in at about 14-13 against the spread, so nothing bad, nothing great. And for Arizona, the man that was really able to lift them in this game, Anthony Del Rosso, off the bench, 22 points. He went 2 of 5 from 3. The rest of the team went 1 of 7 from the outside, but he also came up with 4 steals in this game as well. And for Houston, they shoot just 36% from the floor, so that was able to keep you under. If you're looking at other top 25 teams, UConn, who has been one of your lesser teams against the spread in all of college basketball this year, they're just 10-18 against the spread, but on this day they made you some money, 73-63. They take it to Villanova. For UConn, they go 6 of 19 from 3. They hold Villanova to going 6 of 24 from the outside, and UConn dominated the rebound battle 37-24. For Villanova, they do win that turnover battle 14-10, and for Villanova, Tyler Perkins was able to come up with 15.6 rebounds, but for UConn, just a solid effort. Every one of their starters had between 9 and 12 points, nothing more, nothing less, so they do find a way to persevere in that one. For Florida, they have been a really good team against the spread here in SEC play. I believe that they're now 10-4 against the spread in conference games, 94-75. They take it to Ole Miss, and for UConn, they got threes to drop. 11 out of 22 from 3. They have not done a lot of that thus far this season. And for Ole Miss, they won a nice hearty 2 of 16 from 3-point range. Malik Dia did his best, giving you 24 points, but team got manhandled on the glass. They lose the rebound battle 39-24. Ole Miss won the turnover battle convincingly 19-11, but when you go 2 of 16 from 3 and your opponent goes 11 out of 22 from the outside, that's rough. And Alex Condon, top scorer in this game for Florida, he was able to spy 24 big points. For North Carolina, they've been dealing with the injuries to Henry Vassar along Caleb Wilson. They give Vassar back in this one. They needed him, and they get the job done on the road against Syracuse. 77-64 the final. Henry Vassar, 19 points. For North Carolina, they win the rebound battle 38-34. They do a solid job in terms of playing even up on the glass last 10-10, and for Syracuse, just 3 of 17 from three-point range. J.G. Sarlin had 22 points. Really, nobody else showed up, and North Carolina does go just 15 out of 28 at the free throw line, but they still find a way to be able to get the job done. How about St. John's just absolutely hosing down Creighton? 81-52 the final. Creighton just 9-18-1 against the spread thus far this season, and for Creighton, they couldn't get much of anything going in this game as Creighton goes 6 of 22 from 3. St. John's wasn't great from 3 of 14, but they dominate on the boards 44-30. They dominate the turnover battle 18-11, and for St. John's, they had on their side one Mr. Bryce Hopkins, who had a double-double, 15 points, 10 rebounds, so they get a nice convincing win. Cincinnati has not been a money-making team for you thus far this season. For Cincinnati, against the spread, they are checking in at 12-15, and they've been one of your top under teams in all of college basketball as well. This was a very overwhelming effort, and they win by double digits at the Phog. You don't find that very often. By the way, if you're looking at the Cincinnati unders, out 8 overs to 19 unders thus far this season, but 84-68. They go 12 of 31 from three-point range. Mustafa Team, 28 points, 8 rebounds for this Cincinnati team. They win the rebound battle 40-29, and Darren Peterson actually plays a full allotment of minutes. He goes for 32 minutes, 17 points. Not enough for Kansas as they go 4 of 18 from three-point range, and they shoot just 44% from the floor, even up in the turnover battle 10-10. So nice clean domination there by Cincinnati. Nice clean domination by Nebraska as well. A very rare over for them as they have been playing a whole heck of a lot of unders thus far this season for Nebraska. They are now up to 9 overs, 18 unders thus far this season, and they cover the spread against Penn State. Penn State has been rough against the spread thus far this season. Meanwhile, you've gotten a relatively good showing out of Nebraska. Nebraska now 15-11-1 against the spread. Penn State 11 of 17 against the spread, and for Nebraska, they win 87-64 as they go 14 out of 35 from 3. Price Sanford, 33 big points in this one. For Nebraska, they win the turnover battle 15-11, and Penn State went just 4 of 20 from three-point range, so their scuffles continue. Louisville not able to cover a massive number here against Georgia Tech, but they do get the job done, and they are able to get a nice convincing win, this by a count of 87-70 for Louisville. You had a nice performance here with 19 points out of Mikal Brown. He has been big since he has come back for the team. Now, Louisville 18 turnovers to the 9 of Georgia Tech. That's the reason why they were unable to get the cover, but Louisville does go 19 of 20 at the free throw line. Georgia Tech 3 of 18 from three-point, so congratulations on the cover. They weren't able to do a whole heck of a lot else, though. And then for Miami, this has been a team that's been very interesting thus far this season. They've been one of your top over teams in all of college basketball. For Miami, they've been 13-12-1 against the spread. They play a very up-tempo game here against Virginia. Virginia finds a way to be able to pull this one out 86-83. As for Miami, they are now, with regards to their over percentage, right around about 64%. 16 overs, 9 unders, and a push. And for Virginia, they do allow Miami to go 9 of 18 from three-point, but they respond by going 12 of 24 from three-point range. For Virginia, you had 6 different players in double figures in this game. Tony Bennett was in attendance. I'm sure that he was like, what the heck am I seeing here? But for Virginia, they do a nice job in terms of going 16 of 18 at the free throw line to be able to close this game out. Miami, to their credit, 16 of 17 at the free throw line. And for Virginia, they shoot 58% from the floor. They win this game despite losing the rebound battle 30-23. Texas Tech, game number 1 without JT Toppin. Well, a nice soft landing spot going up against Kansas State as they put up 100 on them. As for Kansas State, this was not great to say the least. They lose 172 the final. As for Kansas State, they have not been a money-making team for you this year. 11-16 against the spread. And for Donovan Atwell, he had himself a nice performance for Texas Tech, 26 points. As for Texas Tech, they go 13 out of 28 from three-point. They win the rebound battle 40-28. And you have to think that you're going to see a little bit more of Lawan Watts moving forward, and Luke Bomboy, who they were able to combine for 31 points down low for Texas Tech. Texas Tech plays even up on the turnover battle 6-6, but the way that they were able to pop it from three-point, that was massive for them. This was also pretty massive as you had yourself a very nice win for Alabama. No cover against LSU, but 90-83 final in this one. As for LSU, 9 of 20 from three-point range. You're still dealing with the injury to Dedan Thomas, but for Alabama, they go 10 of 30 from three-point range. Aiden Holloway was able to spy the team with 17 points, and for Alabama, 30 out of 37 at the free throw line. They play even up with regards to the rebound battle, 39-39. So that was a fun one. If you had the Arkansas Razorbacks laying 9 to 9.5 points, this one was rough as you had a totally meaningless bucket be able to get the cover for Missouri as Trent Pierce gets a dunk with 7 seconds remaining after Arkansas dribbled out the clock. 94-86, the final. Now, if you're looking at Arkansas, they have been very much one of your top over teams in all of college basketball, and they have been a really good cover team as well. With the strong cover, they're now 18-9 against the spread, so they've been a money-making team, and for Arkansas, obviously, the overs have been there for this team as well. They're now back up to 14 overs to 13 unders, and for Missouri, you did have 26 points out of Mark Mitchell in this game, and for Arkansas, the freshman, they continue to step up. Darius Acuff, 20 points, 5 assists. Arkansas wins the turnover battle, 10-5, and they go 22 out of 25 at the free throw line, but again, a little bit of a rough one if you laid it with Arkansas. UCLA, they were down 33-10 against Illinois. They find a way in overtime to get the job done, 95-94. Mick Cronin all week long, he was, well, to call it what it is, not kind to pretty much everyone that was calling them out, and it looked like it was going to be disastrous here for UCLA. For UCLA, they lose their battle on the glass, 43-27, but where they won the battle was on the turnover front, 9-5, and for UCLA, they go 16 out of 19 at the free throw line. Every single one of their starters scores in double figures, with the Daily Show, Eric Daly, going out for 20 points, and for UCLA, 11 out of 28 from three-point range, so they do find a way to be able to get the job done after getting down very early. Tennessee on the road as a small underdog against Vanderbilt. They held them down 69-65 final in this one, as for Vanderbilt, 9 of 23 from three-point range, a shot at fine there, and for Vanderbilt, they don't do too bad on the turnover front, 10-9, they lose that battle, but where Tennessee won this game was on the glass, 39-30. Tennessee wins the rebound battle as you had Jacoby Gillespie give you 17 points in this game, Nate Ament, 13 points, 9 rebounds. Tennessee 15 out of 21 at the free throw line, while Vanderbilt was 12 of 18. So Tennessee, a very nice win for them, and we're going to try to get you some of the very, very super late games like Iowa State versus BYU. Do have to have this up by midnight Pacific, 3 o'clock a.m. Eastern, and I can tell you right now, Gonzaga is not going to cover. Right now, with 2 minutes remaining, they were a 20-plus point favorite. It's right now 68-59, and for Gonzaga, they're actually going to be going to 16-13 against the spread with this non-cover, and they're actually going to be, if they keep this game under, which it looks like it is going to be going under, that would send them now to 19 unders to 10 overs thus far this season, but it's been a lot of Graham Ike and nobody else ever since Braden Huff went down with injury. Currently, as I'm doing this, Ike has supplied the team with 20 points on 21 shots. They've really been entrusting in him to be able to give you a lot of offense, so going to be interesting to see how they operate moving forward. And then if you're looking at your top cover teams in all of college basketball, coming into the day, the number one team in terms of covering spreads was Stone Cold Stephen F. Austin. Still is 20-6 now against the spread, though, as they got a little bit of a tussle here from one Nichols. As for Stephen F. Austin, they get the win but no cover, 81-78 the final. They were laying double figures, and Nichols went 13 out of 26 from three-point range. Nichols lost a rebound battle 31-24, and they lose the turnover battle 13-10, but they were able to go just completely white hot from three-point range. Meanwhile, Latif Patrick was able to lead the way for Stone Cold Stephen F. Austin. He was able to supply the team with 20 points. Certainly an interesting going there. Miami of Ohio is your number 2 team against the spread. If you go back to what happened on Friday, as I had to do the 100 million billion hour podcast yesterday, so I was unable to recap that. They take it to Bowling Green by double figures, so they now go to 18-6 against the spread, and another over for them. They're also a top 5 team to the over, 17 overs to 7 unders thus far this season, so that's been a lot of fun to be taking a look at. What also has been a lot of fun, how about Sam Houston? They are tied for second in the country with regards to against the spread record. They're now 18-6 against the spread. They get the job done once again on Saturday, 82-78 final against Jacksonville State. This was a closing spread that was in that neighbor of right around about 6.5, so they don't get the cover as Jacksonville State. They win the second half 52-46. This was 36-26 at the half, and for Sam Houston, they do go 23 out of 28 at the free throw line, but they've been another team that's been making you a lot of money. Portland State and Eastern Michigan are another 2 teams that have been able to, and the theme here was that a lot of your best teams against the spread, they weren't really covering on Saturday. As for Eastern Michigan, they got completely dump trucked against Toledo, 94-75 final in this one. As for Toledo, 6 of 15 from 3. Eastern Michigan has been a solid defensive team, not a great offensive team. They shoot 46% from the floor, but they lose the turnover battle 13-9. They lose the rebound battle 29-28, and for Toledo, they shot 67% from the floor in this one. So that was a interesting game to say the least. And then Portland State, they get it taken to them by Eastern Washington, who has been very awful on the road thus far this season. For Eastern Washington, they win 67-55 as Portland State, they shoot 31% from the floor, 19 of 61 from the field. Scary Terry Miller had 21 points, and nobody else really did a whole heck of a lot else. For Portland State, they do win the turnover battle 12-8, but for Eastern Washington, they win that rebound battle 42-34, and it's been an Eastern Washington team that has been a little bit up, down all around thus far this season, but they find a way to be able to get the job done, and a rare under for them. Eastern Washington now 16 overs to 11 unders thus far this season. Another good against the spread team has been DePaul. I think that would surprise a lot of people. 16-8-2 against the spread. Another team that's 16-8-2 against the spread is St. Louis. You saw them in the second half get the job done on Friday against VCU, going back to that game. So they were able to do their part, but in terms of DePaul, they were able to give themselves a very spirited effort on this day. They lose against Providence by a count of 71-68. This was a spread that in a lot of places was closing right in the neighborhood of Providence being about a 2 to 2.5 point underdog. So they were another one of those teams that did not cover. For Providence, they were up 38-33 at the half. And Providence has been one of your top over teams in all of college basketball. This was a rare under for them. 19 overs to 7 unders thus far this season. But Providence found a way to be able to hunker down a little bit more on defense, and the DePaul offense has not been great. They shoot 6 of 26 from three-point range, and they've got nobody to blame but themselves for this loss. They go 12 of 24 at the free throw line. So that's another one of those good against the spread teams that were unable to get the job done on Saturday. New Mexico has been a team that has gotten you a lot of overs, 18 overs to 8 unders, and they've been another one of those teams that has been pretty solid in terms of covering spreads, 14-12 against the spread thus far this season. And on Saturday, they were in action, and they played themselves a very interesting game against Fresno State, 80-78. They get the outright win, but they do not get the cover, and that's another cover for a Fresno State team that somehow, some way against the spread has been a juggernaut, 18-8 against the spread for them. So a lot of intrigue there. If you're looking at more of your mid-major teams, these have been the teams that have been continuing to cover here with regards to the teams with the good against the spread records, as Howard has been one of them. Howard against the spread now 16-7-1. They absolutely lambaste NC Central, 167 the final. As for Howard, they go 11 out of 22 from three-point range. You had everyone being able to operate in this game, and for NC Central, they lose the turnover battle 14-13. They lose the rebound battle 35-28. They go 2 of 15 from three-point range, so nice clean domination out there. And then for Navy, they have been just covering spreads left and right as well. They're up to now 18-8-1 against the spread out there in the Patriot League. They do find a way to persevere, get the job done against Army 81-63, as Navy's also been a relatively solid under team as well, but Navy 7 of 15 from three-point range, Army just 10 of 34 from the outside. They won the rebound battle 36-24, and this is a Navy team that's now 23-6, and at 15-1 in the Patriot League, they were the first team to be able to clinch their just regular season conference title in a conference as well. So they have been very, very good with that regard thus far this season. Now, if you're looking at your worst against the spread teams in all of college basketball, UMKC, the Kangaroos, my goodness, they are now 5-20 against the spread. They were catching darn near 20 points here against North Dakota State, and they were nowhere in the ballpark of covering. 95-59 the final. They were down 30 points at the half. A skid mark on the underpants of all of college basketball. Kasheem Grady off the bench at 15 points. Lone double-figure score for the Kangaroos, and North Dakota State 17 out of 39 from three-point range. They won the rebound battle 52-25. They actually lose the turnover battle 15-14, but just an absolute lambastement of the poor little Kangaroos. Air Force 7-19-1 against the spread. They were actually only down 3 points at the half against UNLV. At one point had it tied, but then they lose once again. Ever since Joe Scott was put on suspension and eventually let go, they have lost every one of their 10 games by 15 plus points, 91-66 the final. Average margin of defeat in those 10 games, 27. UNLV goes 9 of 18 from three-point range. Kamani Hamilton, 27 points in this game, and Air Force actually shoots 8 of 22 from three-point range to be able to get you the over there, but they lost the turnover battle 15-4. They actually win the rebound battle 35-29, but yeah, not a great showing for them. So that was another non-cover, as you had Loyola Chicago also be another one of those bad against the spread teams that did not cover. They are now 8-20 against the spread. St. Joe's, they absolutely take it to them, 75-61. The final for Loyola Chicago, they did put up 41 points in the second half, but too little too late. They were down 35-20 at recess, and for Loyola Chicago, they go 9-26 from three-point range, but St. Joe's, they go 8-25 from the outside. St. Joe's wins the turnover battle 12-8. They win the rebound battle 38-32, so they were able to dominate that game. Another team has been really rough against the spread has been Delaware State, who's been actually able to do a really nice job in terms of cashing unders as well. We'll get into that in a second, but for Delaware State, 82-68, they fall to Morgan State. Delaware State in a lot of places, they close as about a 5.5 point underdog, and Delaware State actually cashing over in this game. Yay, verily. They shoot 39% from the floor, but they get lambasted on the glass, losing that rebound battle 44-35. They actually won the turnover battle 14-11. But for Morgan State, Alfred Worrell was able to go off for 25 big points in this game. And if you look at Delaware State with regards to the way that they've been playing to the under now, 6 overs of 15 unders thus far this season. That is a top 5 mark in all of college basketball. Fordham has been that top under team thus far this season. They have only played 6 overs thus far this season. Fordham has done a really nice job in terms of keeping games low scoring and slugs. And they did so once again on Saturday as they were able to get the job done against Davidson 63-59. The final, they were able to get that cover as well. And 18 out of 28 at the free throw line certainly helped you out with regards to the under as well for Fordham, but they got you another one. Ball State has been a really good under team as well. 6 overs to 18 unders. You saw that game on Friday against Akron State under, so they were able to get you another one. Penn has been surprisingly a good under team as well. You would not think of a team coached by Fran McCaffrey as being one to the under, but how about now 6 overs, 16 unders, and a push as they were able to hold in there against Yale. 74-70 the final. Penn does not get the job done outright on the money line, but they get a under and they get a cover, as this was a closing line of about 9.5, and this was despite the fact that Yale shot it really well from three-point range. 10 of 19 from three-point range. They went 15 out of 40 on their 2-point shots, though, and for Yale, they go just 6 of 26 from 3-point range, so Penn was able to cash you another nice quality under there, so that was a relatively fun one. Now, if you're looking at your top over teams in all of college basketball, Providence has certainly been there. Denver has been a really good over team as well, but I believe that we're now up to 3 straight unders with Denver. We've had a few of them be very, very close. I think that they missed the last 2 overs by about 1.5, and in their game against St. Thomas, they do get the outright win, 82-80 as an underdog, but this was a closing total that was more in that neighborhood of about a 168.5, so just a little bit too high, and both teams shot it well from 3. For St. Thomas, 8 of 22 from 3, 11 out of 29 for Denver, but just a little bit of a too high of a total here. And for St. Thomas, if you want to know why they lost this game, Denver shot 17 out of 20 at the free throw line, 8 of 20 at the free throw line for St. Thomas. Yeah, that's a little bit of an issue there. So that was a little bit less than amazing. Louisiana Monroe has been another team that's been really good to the over as well. 19 overs, 7 unders, and a push. And for Louisiana Monroe, they play a nice high-scoring expose against Arkansas State. 102-94. Louisiana Monroe gets covered, so shout out to them as they went 9 of 22 from 3. And Christian Lewis goes off for 33 points. For Arkansas State, they go 14 out of 33 from 3-point range, and they had quite literally 7 different players get into double figures in this game, with the other player, Jalen Hampton, scoring 7 points. He's one of the top rebounders for the team. So that was a very wild and crazy game, to say the least, that very easily cashes you the over. Cleveland State is a good over team. We're going to be seeing them in action on Sunday. Xavier has been cashing you a lot of overs, 19 overs to just 8 unders thus far this season. For Xavier, not playing a lot of defense right now. They were able to hold in there against Butler, 80-75 final in this one at Xavier. They closed as about a 4.5 point underdog, so it got relatively close to the number, and you did get an under. This total was about 159.5, as for Xavier, they go just 10 of 32 from 3-point. Xavier, 9 of 11 at the free throw line, and they lost the turnover battle 7-6. They lose the rebound battle 35-32, and for Butler, they had on their side Michael Ajayi was able to supply 24 points, 9 rebounds, and for Xavier, been a little bit up, down all around with them against the spread thus far this season, as well as that sends them now to 14-13 against the spread, and Butler has really not been a great against the spread team thus far this season as well. They're now 14-14 against the spread with being able to get that cover, so shout out to them. In terms of another really good under team, Northern Illinois. Really, both Illinois. Southern Illinois has been really good to the under as well, so we'll hit up on both of them. For Southern Illinois, 8 overs to 20 unders thus far this season, and in their game on Saturday, they were paired up against Northern Iowa, who likes to make things slogs, and for Southern Illinois, 59-57, they find a way to get the win where you didn't have a lot of three-point shooting in this one, and hey, for Northern Iowa, another under for them, 11 overs to 17 unders thus far this season, as Southern Illinois, they win this game going 6 of 16 from three-point, which for them is like an absolute explosion. They went 1 of 3 at the free throw line, so they didn't have to hit a lot of those, but they lose the turnover battle 18-14. They do win the rebound battle 29-26, but for Northern Iowa, they shot just 44% from the floor, so that was another good quality under out there. And then in terms of the other Illinois, in Northern Illinois, they played themselves an interesting game against Ohio, 74-66. The final, they are unable to get the cover, but for Northern Illinois, this was a total that was more around 148.5. They do get you the under, and a lot of the unders have been because they have been super sloppy with about 14 turnovers for Northern Illinois in this game, so they were able to catch you yet another nice quality under out there. And Eastern Michigan, who I was mentioning before, they've also been a really good under team, 8 overs to 19 unders. Duke is another team that's catched you a lot of unders, 8 overs to 19 unders for them. Currently, we're doing this as the game in Hawaii is going down, and that was a low-scoring first half between UC Santa Barbara and Hawaii. Hawaii entered in the night 7 overs to 16 unders. Going to need to have this up before that game goes final, but that said, currently it's 36-30 in the second half. That's looking like it's going to be yet another under out there in Hawaii, so it's been a lot of fun to take a look at, to say the least. And then one other team that deserves a little bit of credit, how about West Georgia and the way that they've went 17-9 against the spread? You've got a few Atlantic Sun teams that have been very interesting against the spread, as for Western Illinois, they've been able to cover numbers all season long. They fall to Queens NC, this by kind of 91-84, but once again, they were a big underdog in this game of 11.5 points, so they're able to get another nice cover. Sheldon Williams-Dryden has been very versatile. Josh Smith was able to step up. He gave the team 20 points in this game, so they were able to get a cover. And Florida Gulf Coast has not been covering a lot of spreads this far this season for Dunk City. It's been all sorts of rough. They do get the win though against Central Arkansas, 75-71, so they were able to get a nice quality cover in this game. That sends Florida Gulf Coast to now 7-19-1 against the spread. Oregon, by the way, 9-18 against the spread. They were able to get a nice quality cover on Saturday as well. They were paired up with USC, and for USC, they lose the game outright, 71-70 the final. USC have been leading throughout much of the game, but for Oregon, despite going 4 of 16 from three-point range, they find a way to get it done with Kwame Evans, KJ Evans being able to give you 21 points, and for USC, they in this game win the turnover battle 15-11. They win the rebound battle 35-33, but they shot just 38% from the floor, so that was Oregon being able to get you a nice quality cover out there. And VMI, they are 8-18 against the spread, so it's been another relatively rough year for them, as SoCon teams have been very interesting to say the least. They lose to Western Carolina. VMI does 81-62, so absolutely lambasted there. Mercer has been a good cover team, but 89-86. They're unable to get the cover on Saturday against Samford, so they've been slipping a little bit, still 18-8 against the spread thus far this season, so they've been able to cash you a lot of tickets. I mentioned that UConn-Villanova game. They're now 17-10 against the spread. Villanova is after that non-cover, and hey, Arizona State is actually 17-9-1 against the spread. You'd think that the Wildcats of Arizona would be the better against the spread team. Nope, it's been Arizona State, and for Arizona State, another spirited effort on Saturday as they go on the road. They don't win against Baylor, but they kept it lower scoring, 73-68 the final. This was a spread that was right around about 8.5, and you were able to get 20 big points in this one out of Anthony Johnson to be able to get you the cover. So lots of interesting action in college basketball on Saturday, and if you're looking at the trends of college basketball in the last 7 days, we have been seeing things go a little bit more overwhelming. 159 overs to 151 unders. That's a 51.3% rate to the over, and underdogs 52.5% against the spread. This is with a few games pending for Saturday, 163 and 147 against the spread. And if you look at the overall season to date, the underdogs are cashing at a rate of about 51.4%, 2,434 and 2,303 against the spread. Meanwhile, the under rate still right around about 50.6%, 2,396 unders to 2,342 overs. So that's where we're seeing college basketball right now. That's where we're getting trend-wise. And coming next, how about if we do chat it up with our good friend Curtis Rogers of 710 Seattle Sports Radio on Coast to Coast East with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the Beast and Family Podcast. Side edge this college basketball season? Well, VSiN experts use CBB Analytics, the most comprehensive college basketball analytics platform in the world. See injury impact, on and off data, clutch time performance metrics, first versus second half splits, and so much more. Utilize the promo code of VSiN, that is VSIN, to get $30 off and find your betting edge over at cbbanalytics.com. That is cbbanalytics, all one word.com. For anyone that is new to VSiN, well, I wish you a friendly hello. This is an attention to anyone that is new to VSiN because you're able to get some free stuff with our daily newsletter. It's a great way to catch up on everything that's happening in the sports betting world. It's delivered straight to your inbox every single morning. VSiN's newsletter offers picks, data, strategies for the day's betting menu, and so much more. Sign up for free today over at VSiN.com/newsletter. That's VSIN.com/newsletter, and start receiving your free newsletter tomorrow morning. That is VSIN.com/newsletter. Stay ahead of the game and bet smarter with VSiN. And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this man as we've got Curtis Rogers aboard. He does such great work over at 710 Seattle Sports, looking at this great game that we all know and love of college basketball. Also getting geared up for baseball season as well. It's starting to be spring training. He does a pre- and post-game hosting for the Seattle Mariners. I know that he does a little bit of everything out there in the lovely state of Washington, so he's covering it all. You're able to follow it all on the old Twitter/X at A Kid From Kent. That's where you're able to find his Instagram feed as well, at A Kid From Kent, all together. And Curtis, always great to get you aboard. Thank you.
Greg, always happy to hop on with you, and especially coming off this incredible slate of hoops we had over the weekend. I mean, what a weekend it was in college basketball. You couldn't ask for a better weekend of college basketball, especially for those of us who are coming down from football season, looking for something to do on the weekends. I mean, you have the top four seeds in the AP poll meeting against one another this late into the season. How often does that happen? Pretty special stuff we saw over the course of Saturday.
Curtis, who needs your stinking foosball when we've got all this college basketball, my friend? Like, my goodness, it was insane. And just what did you find out about the top teams in the sport? Because you mentioned it. We had the top four teams squaring off with one another. Duke being able to take down Michigan, Arizona. They go on the road. They get the job done against Houston. And I thought that those were two very pivotal games. And I feel like with those four teams that squared off against one another, I do think that they truly are the top four teams in the sport, because you did see Iowa State have a tough time with BYU on Saturday. You also saw, with regards to UConn, them be a little bit up and down this week as well. And I truly feel like we got the best four teams in the sport playing one another on Saturday.
Yeah, and both those games were pretty epic. Arizona and Houston, that one was back and forth throughout. Arizona got off to the big lead early. Houston clawed their way back to take a lead in the second half. But then Arizona took a 10-0 run to make it 58-50 in the game's final minutes, and Houston went ice cold. I think they went over 10 minutes without making a field goal in the second half. Arizona able to pull away, and then Duke and Michigan, I mean, just so much talent on the floor in Washington, D.C. on Saturday. It's a really special night of college basketball. I thought Arizona's win was pretty impressive in the fact that they were missing two key contributors. Koa Pete out. He's missed the last, I think, 3 or 4 games with the same injury. And then Dwayne Aristode also out. Two big contributors. Pete obviously starting, Aristode coming off the bench. And they needed everything. Anthony Del Orso with an incredible performance shooting the ball. Ivan Kurchenkov really opening some eyes. He could potentially be a first-round pick if things continue to go his way, the way they have over the last couple of weeks. Arizona with a really impressive win at the Fertitta Center, a place not many people win at. That was a true road game, again, for Arizona. Their 3 wins against top 3 teams this season have all come either on the road or a neutral site game. So that's an impressive streak that Arizona has going for them. And then Duke, I mean, what a win it was. Michigan, I think, has been the best team in college basketball, pound for pound, but the Blue Devils, I think, will be number 1 come Monday's AP poll. I think it goes Duke, Arizona, then probably Michigan, and I think Houston probably rounds out the 4. I don't think any of those 4 teams fall out of the top 4, but I think they get shuffled around a little bit heading into Monday's AP poll.
Yep, I am right there with you, especially with the fact that UConn had lost earlier in the week. Kansas They had a full allotment of Peterson, but they lose to Cincinnati at home by double figures. That's not great. The family name needs some redeeming next week, so there's that aspect of things. And how do you take a look at the teams outside the top four right now? Because it does feel like there is now just a separation between they and everyone else, because I mentioned the fact that UConn lost earlier in the week. Now, nice bounce-back win against Villanova. St. John's, they're starting to look a little bit stronger, but a team out there in your neck of the woods that could be one of the biggest competitors in Gonzaga, they had a very tough time with Pacific, and I think if they get Braden Huff back, they could be able to make a little bit of noise, but it's very clear right now that they need someone to go alongside Graham Ike because it feels like he's doing it all by himself.
Yeah, Gonzaga is a team definitely that could definitely make a run, but they just need to get healthy. Braden Huff is so integral to what they do in Spokane, and I think the Zags could really, really use his help. Get him back healthy in the season's final games, get him healthy for the conference tournament, and then obviously you need him healthy in the NCAA tournament for Gonzaga to have a shot at making a run at the Final Four. You mentioned Kansas. I mean, that 16-point loss to a pretty mediocre Cincinnati team at home. You mentioned getting the full allotment of Darren Peterson. One of the craziest stories in college basketball I can ever remember. This guy is just dripping with talent, probably going to be the number one pick in the NBA draft. At least, I mean, we all think he's going to be the number one pick in the NBA draft, but you got to wonder just what is this kid's motor? What is this kid's desires at the college level? Kind of reminds me like Ben Simmons in a way, where everybody knew the talent was there with Ben Simmons, but was the desire ever there for him? Was the want to ever there for him? I guess maybe Darren Peterson's kind of like, I'm only here for a little bit, and we all know where my talent is going to end up anyway. It's going to be in the NBA, so maybe it's that route. I don't know. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like Kyrie Irving's year. He spent at Duke where he only played like 10 games for the Blue Devils that year. I know he was hurt for a big portion of that season, but just a very strange thing going on over in Lawrence, Kansas. How about Nebraska, though? Huge win over Penn State over the weekend. They looked really good. And then I think Texas Tech, they're building momentum, especially after that win over Arizona last week. They blow out Kansas State on Saturday. The Red Raiders, a team definitely worth paying attention to as maybe a dark horse team to advance maybe past the second weekend in the NCAA tournament.
Yep, and with Texas Tech, it's just so unfortunate what happened with the JT Toppin injury as well, because I'd be agreeing with you a little bit more if it wasn't for that. But hey, nice soft landing spot going up against Kansas State in the first game without him, as we do have Curtis Rogers. He does such great work over at 710 Seattle Sports. He's joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops, and no doubt about it, that's interesting. And then out there in our neck of the woods out west, there's a whole UCLA drama where it looked like it was going to be disastrous against Illinois. They get down 23 points, and it's looking like, man, Mick Cronin is trying to get himself fired. They make a bonsai charge late against an Illinois team that going into this game, I thought that they were one of the biggest competitors to be perhaps be able to crack the top five as well. What do you make out of both of these teams? Because for Illinois, now they've lost 3 games, all in overtime, to Wisconsin, Michigan State, and UCLA. And for UCLA, it looked like this team was dying, and then they came back to life Saturday night.
Yeah, UCLA needed this one in the worst way. Definitely on the bubble, I would say, heading into the season's final couple of weekends here in the regular season. They've got a good shot to pick up a quality win against Nebraska coming up on March 3rd. That is their second to last home, or that is their senior night. Actually, that's their last game at Pauley Pavilion this year. So that should be a pretty incredible atmosphere on that Tuesday night, or at least hopefully it is. You never quite know what crowd you're going to get at Pauley Pavilion these days, but that's going to be a game of the utmost importance to them. 2 of their final 4 games against crosstown rival USC, so there's a lot to play for with that. And then they have to make a weird trip to Minnesota, and as we've seen this year, the West Coast Big Ten teams just have not really fared all that well when they have to venture out of that Pacific time zone. It's been a funky year for all 4 teams. Oregon has not played well this year. Washington has really hit the skids. USC is, still talented for sure. UCLA very much on the bubble right now. All 4 of these teams really just kind of hoping that they can weather the storm here in the regular season. USC and UCLA really in kind of similar spots heading into the season's last 2 weeks here. So UCLA, USC really needing those wins, and then UCLA with that opportunity against Nebraska. So a lot to play for those 2 schools.
No question about it. It's going to be really interesting to see what we get out of them, as Curtis Rogers, who does such great work over at 710 Seattle Sports, is joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops. And just what do we make out of the West Coast landscape in general in college basketball? Because obviously the top team is Arizona. The Arizona fans are butts about it. With Gonzaga, even with the stumbles that they've had, I still think that they're your number 2 team, but we just mentioned it. With UCLA, it's been all around strange. USC takes a bad loss against Oregon, which it's very strange to be saying that a loss to Oregon is bad, but that's where we are here in 2026. For the teams out there in the WCC, you've obviously got St. Mary's, who's been rock solid. Santa Clara, I still think even with that loss to Gonzaga last week, they're making a push for an NCAA tournament as well, but it does feel like the Mountain West too has been a little bit down, with San Diego State being a team that isn't quite what we'd expect San Diego State to be, and the Mountain West in general just having a few teams that have just not lived up to expectations.
Yeah, it has not been a year to really write home about here on the West Coast. It is not what it was even last year, where I think you had plenty of teams opening eyes and really performing well. I look at that Mountain West Conference. You mentioned San Diego State right now sitting at 18-8, 12-4 in conference play. Right now, if I'm the Mountain West, I'm probably looking at maybe a 2-bid league, potentially 3, really kind of depending on how San Diego State finishes up their regular season. New Mexico looking really good at 21-6, 12-4 in conference play. Utah State has been atop the Mountain West all season long. They look like the class of the Mountain West right now. So hopefully Utah State can avoid any kind of landmines between now and the end of the regular season, and also in the Mountain West Conference tournament. You're going to need, I think, at least those 3 teams make it to the semifinals of the Mountain West Conference tournament to have a shot at sending 3 to the big dance. As we have seen in years past, the NCAA tournament has not really sent many at-large mid-major teams to the tournament. I know probably over a decade ago, you were looking at probably between 10 to 13 at-large mid-major teams. That number has dropped dramatically over the last few years. So there's going to be less and less opportunities for these mid-major teams that don't win their conference tournament in order to make the NCAA tournament. So hopefully, for the sake of the little guys, we see a selection committee maybe allow some of these mid-major at-large teams in, because I still think that New Mexico is definitely worthy of a top 68 seed, as is San Diego State right now, but it all kind of remains to be seen with what direction the selection committee is going to go.
Yep, it is going to be really interesting, and it is going to be a lot of fun to see what we get out of those teams as well. And then I think the hierarchy of the Big Ten is also really interesting, because obviously Michigan has planted their flag as a top team in the Big Ten, but with Purdue, what do we make out of them after their loss to Michigan? We've got Michigan State, who's going to be in action on Sunday against Ohio State. They've been rock solid. Wisconsin is coming up with some very good wins as well. I mentioned they go on the road. They knock off Illinois. They're the lone team to knock off Michigan right now prior to that game against Duke as well. So that Duke versus Michigan game as well. So they're a team that's lingering out there. I feel like in the Big Ten, you certainly have that top team, but what you make out of it after that is very intriguing, with a few teams looking at you, Penn State, looking at you, Oregon, that have not been pulling their weight this year.
No, yeah, Penn State and Oregon, woof. That is a brutal season those two teams have been putting together there. Two teams that I have my eye on in the Big Ten, Greg, that could potentially snatch one of those at-large bids that we were just talking about. Iowa and Ohio State, both those teams in position to get an at-large bid, even though they haven't necessarily had the most amazing season. Iowa looking pretty good, though. Next win will put them over 20, and they're 9-6 in conference play right now. Indiana, another team, looking at them as a potential at-large team to the NCAA tournament, but they have slipped up as of late. Same with USC. I would say USC, before this 3-game losing streak, was pretty firmly in the NCAA tournament. Now, probably can't say that. So it just kind of goes to show the razor-thin line that these teams are going to have to toe here over the season's final 4 regular season games, because if they slip up, if they drop 2 or 3, or heck, even all 4, that can be the difference between sitting at home on Selection Sunday and getting that bid to go to the NCAA tournament.
Yep, I'm right there with you, and it's going to be interesting to see how those teams are able to form themselves. And then to just open it up a little bit here, who's a team or two that might be outside like the top 10, top 15? It could be a mid-major, it could be a team that's completely unranked. It's a little bit of dealer's choice here that you really have your eye on now that we've reached late February and they're trying to make that push towards March.
Yeah, well, one team that I think has been playing pretty well as of late, it's a team that has really flown under the radar this season, Coming out of ACC, how about the Virginia Cavaliers? The Wahoos 24-3 right now on this season. And it's
scored
it's
86
not the Virginia
points with
Cavaliers,
Coach Bennett in attendance, too.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
That probably would have made his head explode. But, yeah, I think Virginia is definitely a team worth monitoring. I mean, they've won what? Like 7, 8 in a row here. They finish off the regular season, NC State at Duke. That's going to be a crazy atmosphere. February 28th at Cameron Indoor. Wake and Virginia Tech. I mean, that Duke game is probably going to be for the ACC conference title. So I think right now this Virginia team, you look at their losses, a triple overtime loss at Virginia Tech and a loss at home to a good North Carolina team. I think the Wahoos, Greg, are definitely a team that is playing their best ball right now. And, I mean, heck, they're only 14th in the AP poll right now. But come Selection Sunday, if they finish off this regular season and get that win against Duke and have a really good showing in the ACC tournament, you're looking at a team that could potentially find their way into being probably a number 2 seed in the NCAA tournament.
No doubt about it. It is going to be a lot of fun to take a look at that Virginia team. A team that still plays really good defense, too. They've been very dominant on the glass. It just feels like they do a lot of the little things well. And ironically enough, the coach that knocked off Virginia as a 16 seed over a 1, the first that we ever saw, now that coach over at Virginia. So it's all coming full circle there, and everything comes full circle on this podcast when you're aboard, my friend, because you, Curtis, do such an amazing job looking at this great sport, and you really cover a little bit of everything out there in the Pacific Northwest. You do so also well. So let the good people at home know it's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, we're having a blast up here in the Pacific Northwest, getting closer and closer to the NCAA tournament. I believe we're, 25 days away from the start of this thing? So less than 4 weeks to go before Selection Sunday is here, before the madness starts. So great time to get in, following the Zags as they continue to make their march towards the postseason. Washington State and Washington, they have not had great seasons this year, but we will definitely be picking up the pieces from them as well. Eastern and Seattle U, they have had their years as well. So really fun basketball scene up here in the Pacific Northwest. And as Greg mentioned, we've got all sorts of other stuff too. The confetti just stopped falling from the parade of the Seahawks Super Bowl parade from last week. And Mariners season starting as well. So a little something for everybody up here in the Pacific Northwest. And Greg, always happy to hop on with you, talk some college hoops as we get closer and closer to the tournament. This is so exciting. As conference tournament time is almost here. Jockeying for seeding is I mean, heck, we saw the top 16 teams unveiled on Saturday. So the tournament very much within sight, and I can't wait to talk about it more with you over the coming weeks.
It's so close, we can almost taste it. We also need to see what the Seattle Redhawks are going to do in their first WCC tournament as well. That's going to be a lot of fun. Curtis is doing an amazing job of being able to cover it all, and every single time he joins me, lends such great insight. So big thanks to Curtis for joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And coming next, it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this college basketball Sunday as we hit some bank shots. And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by Curtis Rogers. He does such amazing work over at 710 Seattle Sports, looking at a little bit of everything, whether you're looking at college basketball, football, hockey, as the Seattle Kraken are out there in Seattle, and so much more. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights, and he did so once again today. So a big thanks to Curtis for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this college basketball Sunday as we hit some bank shots.
Most financial establishments close at a certain time, but not here. It is time for a side and total on every game on today's betting board bank shots.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at @GUnit_81, and we are going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is essentially time order except for the Patriot League games. The Patriot League is a conference that is in the the extra games board. Those 3 games are going to be at the bottom. Everything else is in time order, so that'll keep things pretty easy. And how about if we do get things started with 8:29, 8:30? Memphis is going to be playing against UAB. The Blazers of UAB are 4.5 to 5-point underdogs. It's all this game. It opened up at a 146. We're up to a 149.5 to a 115.5. I still like the over. I did set my total at a 152.5, mainly because UAB is just going to get a lot of clean possessions. They lead the country in fewest turnovers on a per possession basis, and both of these teams, well, they are Blazers. Memphis 51st in the country in terms of total possessions per game. UAB is 48th, and I think UAB is going to be able to hold in there. Did set them as a 2.5-point underdog. Now, you've got a Memphis team that's outside the top 225 in terms of points per possession at home, and Doug McDaniel, their top scorer, 12.5 points per game. He's seen a little bit of a fall off recently. You've had Sincere Parker sincerely do a nice job in conference. He's become their top scorer in American conference play. In conference play, only 14 points, shoots 47% from 3, but it's a Memphis team that doesn't really shoot it well from 3. They shoot only about 32% from the outside. Now, UAB does not either. UAB, they are shooting less than 30.5% from 3 points. They're a bottom 15 team in the country, but UAB is also 22nd in the country in terms of percentage of their shots that come from inside the 3-point line, which then mitigates the fact that Memphis is allowing teams to shoot about 29.7% from 3. That is 14th in the country, and that'll help out UAB in this spot. Now, for Memphis, you've had a lot of banged up guys, and getting back Curtis Givens, who gives you 10 points, shoots about 38% from 3. That's going to help a little bit, but for this Memphis team, they're outside the top 325 in terms of ball security, as they turn the ball over darn near 14 times per contest, and UAB is a much better team on the glass as well. Memphis is allowing teams to grab about 33% of their missed shots as an offensive rebound. That is a bottom 40 mark in the country. Meanwhile, UAB, in terms of defensive rebound percentage, they're in the top 35. Chance Westry has been a do-it-all sort of guy, 15 points, 5 assists, 4 boards. He doesn't shoot it well from 3. Your main 3-point shooter right now is Ahmad Robinson at 34% from the outside, but he's been able to play with 10 points per game. You got Daniel Rivera, Kyron Lindsey, that both give you 6.5 plus rebounds per game between the two of them. You're getting 22.7 points per game. Jacob Meyer has been able to throw in there 13 points, throws in their 4 boards per contest. I think that UAB is going to do a nice job holding in there. A little bit hard to take them out right on the money line, mainly because they only shoot about 69.9% at the free throw line, but in an up-tempo game, being able to keep things clean, I think that you get enough clean possessions for the over and UAB to hold in there. So, line at 2.5. I'm taking the points here with UAB, and I'm in on the over semi-total at a 152.5. 831, 832, UW Green Bay on the road against Detroit. Detroit does find themselves as a favorite here between 1 to 1.5 points. Total is between 148.5 to 149, and I made a total of a 148.5. So 149 does become my buy point here on the under. You've got a Green Bay team that has not been efficient on defense. They're outside the top 320 in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, but they are playing super stinking slow. They're about 339th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. Meanwhile, you've got a Detroit team that has really went into inferno mode from 3-point range in terms of their conference games. For Detroit, they were shooting less than 30% from 3-point range in non-conference play. Here in conference play, that's gone up to 41%. That leads Horizon Lake. You've had Orlando Lovejoy be Mr. Versatile for the team. He really doesn't give you any 3-point shooting, but 14 points, 3.5 boards, 3.5 assists, 1.7 steals, shoots 89% at the free throw line. TJ Nadeau has been that main 3-point shooter at 47% from the outside, 13 points per game. Tyler Spratt, he's been able to shoot about 39% from 3, throwing in there about 10 points per game, and Detroit is really good in giving themselves second and third chances. Top 65 team in terms of percentage of the missed shots that result in an offensive rebound, and it's a Green Bay team that has been quite efficient on offense despite the fact that they don't give themselves second chances. They're outside the top 340 in terms of percentage of the missed shots that result in an offensive rebound. This game should not feature a lot of turnovers. Detroit outside the top 310 in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis on defense. Green Bay is outside the top 335, but with this Green Bay team, they're about 86th in the country in terms of points scored on a per possession basis because they are a top 100 team in terms of taking care of the ball, and they've just been a pretty solid shooting team in general. Green Bay shoots 36.9% from 3-point range. That's a top 40 mark in the country. Marcus Hall has been a bit of a do-it-all sort of guy. 14.5 points, 5.5 boards, 2.5 assists. He's through shooting about 40% from 3, and then Preston Rudiger, Caden Wilkins both shoot about 41% from the outside. Wilkins gives you about 7.3 rebounds per game. Rudiger, he's their main facilitator with about 5 assists per game, and Green Bay does a good job in terms of getting to the free throw line. Top 85 team in terms of free throws attempted on a per possession basis. They shoot about 75.5% at the free throw line. For Detroit, you've got legend Geeter being able to Geeter done with about 6 rebounds per game. He's pretty much a lone guy in the game in general. That gives you over 5.5 rebounds per game. And Detroit shoots 76% in the free throw line. I just don't know if you get enough possessions here for the over, even though Detroit is a top 135 team in terms of total possessions per game. So set a total of a 148.5. You're at 149 plus in on the under, and I set Detroit as 1.5 point favorite. I'd be willing to lay up to 1 with them. I'm personally going to be waiting a little bit. If we get 2 plus, that becomes my buy point on Green Bay, but if I had to play it right now, would lay 1 with Detroit to go along with the 149 plus to the under. 833, 834, Ohio State, the Ohio State University on the road against Michigan State. Michigan State 9.5 to 10.5 point favorites. So on this game, anywhere between 144.5 to 147.5, and I made my total 140. I'm in on the under. Have to keep in mind that John Mobley is no longer out there for Ohio State. That was their number 2 scorer, averaging about 15 points, shooting 40% from 3-point range. And this is not going to be some sort of a super up-tempo game. Ohio State is about 204th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. Michigan State is just outside the top 260, and it's a Michigan State team that has been so dominant with regards to their defense. They are second in the country in terms of defensive rebound percentage. Fewer than 20% of opponents' missed shots become an offensive rebound. Now, Ohio State a really good perimeter defense. They're allowing teams away from home to shoot only about 30.8% from 3-point. That's the top 45 mark in the country. Meanwhile, Michigan State at home, they allow teams to only shoot about 30% from 3-point. That's a top 50 mark in the country. And for Michigan State, they actually have a really wonky home and road split. They shoot 32.9% from 3-point at home, 38.8% when they're away from home. And for Michigan State, they do a nice job being able to keep the offense relatively clean with Jeremy Fears. Give you 15 points, 9 assists. Doesn't really bomb it well from 3, but Jackson Kaler, 12.5 points, 9.5 rebounds per game. If Ohio State looks to pile drive the ball inside, as Ohio State has been very good with their interior offense. They're a top 35 team with their 2-point shooting percentage. Michigan State is a top 30 team with regards to opponents' 2-point shooting percentage. So they do a nice job there. You've got Colin Carr give you about 12 points, 5 rebounds per game. And on the flip side for Ohio State, you still do have Bruce Thornton. That's your top scorer, and he has been magnificent this season. He's shooting in that neighborhood about 39.5% from 3, 20 points, 5.5 boards, 4 assists per game. And then Devin Royal, he's been able to add some versatility, as for Iowa State, even with the injury to John Mobley, each of your top 3 scorers, you shoot at least 76% of the free throw line. As a whole, they shoot about 78.3%, the charity stripe, top 15 mark there. And then you've been able to have Christoph Tilley be able to throw in there about 11.5 points, 4.5 rebounds per game. But Iowa State doesn't really give themselves second chances to start with outside the top 200 with regards to offensive rebound percentage. With having Mobley out of the fold, I do think that's going to make it a little bit of an uphill battle for them, especially with the Michigan State team that is just so good with their defense and really does not get sped up. So I did set a total here of a 140. I'm going to be in on the under. Maybe my line 10. We're between 9.5 and 10. Personally, with the injury to Mobley, I'd rather lay 9.5 with Michigan State rather than take 10.5 with Ohio State. 8:35, 8:36 on the card. Iona is going to be on the road against Merrimack, and the Merrymen of Merrimack do find themselves as a favorite of 7.5 to 8.5 points. 136.5 is the total. Made my total 133.5. I like the under. You've got an Iona team that's been very much slowed down here in conference play. They're down outside the top 150 in terms of total possessions per game after they were top 100 team outside the conference. And Merrimack, well, this is a super duper slow team. 358th in the country in terms of total possessions per game, and you just don't get good looks against this Merrimack team either. You look at them in terms of opponents' 2-point shooting percentage, they are 46th in all of college basketball. In terms of opponents' 3-point shooting percentage, they're in the top 50 as well. Now they get blowtorch on the glass. They're a bottom 5 team in the country with regards to overall rebound percentage, but also induce a lot of turnovers. They are a team that ranks in the top 50 in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. Now I have an Iona team that does a relatively okay job in terms of taking care of the ball. I like what CJ Anthony brings to the table as he supplies his team with about 14 points, 5 assists per game. Iona about country average in terms of taking care of the ball. They don't get to the free throw line whatsoever. And Iona, their forte has been really being able to dominate the 3-point line. They shoot about 35% from 3-point range themselves, at top 145 mark in the country, and they don't give you any good looks from 3-point range either. Teams are shooting just 30.8% from 3-point range. That is a top 35 mark in the country. Merrimack, they're allowing teams to shoot 28.8% from 3. That falls at 25.6% at home. That is a top 10 mark in all of college basketball, so they have been very supreme there. You've had Todd Brogdon now be able to give you about 4.5 rebounds per game, though. The top rebounder in this game is going to belong to Iona, with Lamine Salabi being able to supply about 11.5 points, 3 assists, 8 rebounds. I like his game. And then you've had Toby Harris shoot 96% of the free throw line, 40% from 3. He's the best sharpshooter in this game. But Merrimack, they do have a pair of guys that have really stepped up in the scoring department, as you've got KVR Kennedy supplying about 18 points, 4.5 boards, 4 assists, 2 steals. Shoots 33% from 3, but doesn't attempt a lot of threes. Ernest Shelton does shoot 36% from 3, 16 points per game, but for this Merrimack group. They're not necessarily the best shooting team. They're outside the top 240 with regards to both their 2-point and 3-point shooting percentages. Now, in a pressure spot, they shoot 78.5% at the free throw line. That is a top 15 mark in the country, and they take great care of the ball. They're a top 75 team in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis, but I do think that you get a slow down slog of a game, and with Merrimack, I just don't know if they're going to do quite enough to be able to cover this number. Semi-line at a 7.5, so at 8+, I do think that perimeter defense of Iona holds up. I like the under, and I do like the 8+ here with Iona. 837, 838. Northern Kentucky is going to be on the road against Youngstown State. The Penguins of Youngstown State are 2.5 to 3.5 point favorites. So it's between 152 to 152.5, and I made my total 155. I do like the over. We've got a Northern Kentucky team that has really been speeding themselves up as the season has went along. They're up to about 83rd in the country in terms of total possessions per game. Youngstown State, very mid-tempo team, 194th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. And it's a Youngstown State team that's solid with their 3-point shooting at 34.9%. That's a top 135 mark in the country. Northern Kentucky, they see a bit of a drop-off when they're away from home with their outside shooting at about 31.2%, but this Northern Kentucky team should be able to find some good looks on the inside, as with regards to their road 2-point shooting percentage, they are a top 45 team in the country, so they've done a great job there. You've got a Youngstown State team that does have Ivan Zuvilov, who's been able to give you multiple blocks per contest, so he's been able to fill that Gabe Dines role from a season ago, but that said, they're really based around Chris Carroll, who's caroling all the way to 17.5 points, 5 boards, shoots 41% from 3-point range. You'll have to love what Rich Rolfe has been able to bring to the table, shooting 37.5% from 3-point range. It is a Youngstown State team that is a top 175 team with regards to opponents' 2-point shooting percentage, and they themselves have been able to do a really good job on the inside, as they're 32nd in the country in terms of their 2-point shooting percentage. It's actually much better away from home rather than at home, but you do have a Northern Kentucky team that has been a little bit less than efficient on the defensive side of things, which really both of these teams have had their deficiencies with regards to their defense. Northern Kentucky is actually a top 25 team in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis away from home, but they sort of gamble for turnovers because they're overall 224th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. For Northern Kentucky, they really give it up from 3-point teams. They're shooting away from home 39% from 3-point against them. That is 340th in all of college basketball. Youngstown State at home, they allow teams to shoot 36.7% from 3-point range, so I do think that you're going to get a nice expose of scoring here. You've got Bryson Dawkins for this Youngstown State team also being able to supply 13 points per game. Meanwhile, for Northern Kentucky, you really have a quartet of guys that have been able to step up and provide good, clean offense. LJ Wells is going to be your top rebounder in this game, 7 boards, 14.5 points per game. Donovan Ode, 18.5 points, 4 boards, and he only shoots about 30% for 3, but then you've got Khalil Robinson, 40% 3-point shooter with about 14 points, throws in their 4.5 boards. Dan Gresinger, 16 points per game, and for Northern Kentucky, they're neither here nor there with their free throw shooting at about 71.5%. They're a country average team in terms of taking care of the ball, but I do think that Northern Kentucky does a solid job of holding in there. Youngstown State, if you put them in a pressure spot, they're shooting about 74.5% at the free throw line, but the fact that they are outside the top 275 in terms of ball security, they turn the ball over 13 times per game, I think helps out Northern Kentucky here, so somehow line at 3, willing to take 3.5+ with Northern Kentucky, and I like the over. Somebody total 155, 839, 840. If you got Rice, we give our road to Lane Kiffin. Go Owls. They're going to be on the road against Tulane. Tulane is a 6.5 point favorite total on this game. It is 145.5, and with Rice, I did set them as an underdog of 4.5 points, so I'm going to be willing to take those points. Tulane is just doing absolutely nothing whatsoever to give themselves second and third chances. In terms of percentage of their missed shots, they result in an offensive rebound. This Tulane team is 356th in the country. They rebound 19.6% of their missed shots. Meanwhile, for Rice, they're 43rd in the country. They rebound 33.7% of their misses as an offensive rebound. Now, Rice is a really sorry team on the inside. They are 347th with regards to their own 2-point shooting percentage, but they're a team that has been able to shoot about 34.9% from 3-point. That's a top 150 mark in the country. Meanwhile, for Tulane, very funky home and road 3-point shooting splits. They shoot 29% from 3-point at home at 35.9% away from home. So they're a bottom 30 team in the country with their 3-point shooting percentage at home. Top 75 team away from home. You've got Rome Brumba, who's been able to give you 18 points, 5 boards, 4 assists, and he's a 35% 3-point shooter. Curtis Williams shoots 35% from 3, 12.5 points per game. Brumba's the lone guy in the roster for Tulane, by the way. That gives you over 4.3 rebounds per game. Now, Tulane, top 125 team in terms of taking care of the ball, about 10.8 turnovers per game. And with regards to their defense, their shooting percentages aren't bad. They're a top 165 team in terms of opponents, 2-point and 3-point shooting percentage, not within the top 125 in either category, but you know what, neither here nor there. And Tulane has been a top 45 team in terms of free throws attempted on a per possession basis, and they shoot about 76.5% 69% at the free throw line. That is a top 40 mark in all of college basketball. Meanwhile, you've got a Rice group that has a backcourt that's been together for a few years. Trey Bordeaux has been your main guy, 16 points, 5.5 boards, only shoots about 32% from three, but Nick Anderson, Jalen Smith, these two guys combined to shoot about 39% from three, 27 points per game between the two of them, and then the ancillary guys have been okay on the glass. You've been having Stephen Guia be able to supply about 4.5 rebounds per game. Jimmy Oldakun gives you 5.2 rebounds per game. Andrew Akuchi has been able to throw in there right around about 4 boards per contest as well. So I think that that's going to keep Rice lively here. Now, Rice only shoots about 69% at the free throw line, but all those second and third chances that they're able to develop, and this is a Rice team that has been a top 175 team with regards to opponents' 2-point shooting percentage. I think that keeps them in this game. Semi-line at 4.5, and we'll take the points here with Rice, and I'm in on the under. Semi-total at a 144.5, 841, 842. St. Peter's is going to be on the road against Siena. The Saints of Siena find themselves as 6.5 point favorites. So last game is 134.5, and a semi-line at 3. I'm going to be willing to take the points. It's a Siena team that in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis is 67th in the country, but that falls well outside the top 100 when they're at home. Meanwhile, you've got a St. Peter's group that I think is going to be able to own the offensive glass. This is a St. Peter's team that overall they're about 89th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. Both of these teams are slow. You got St. Peter's checking in 306th in the country in terms of total possessions per game, and the Siena group is 359th. Neither team is lighting it up from three-point. I recognize that Siena has been closer to about 34% with their three-point shooting here in conference play, so they've had a little bit of a come up there, but if you look at what they've been able to do just overall for the season, they're still outside the top 275 with regards to their three-point shooting percentage. Meanwhile, you've got a St. Peter's team that currently they're outside the top 310 with regards to both their 2-point and 3-point shooting percentage. As a matter of fact, for St. Peter's away from home, they shoot 28.7% from the outside. Siena at home, they shoot about 31.9% from 3-point, but St. Peter's top 25 team in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis, and Siena overall is a top 100 team here, but they're actually in the top 25 when they're away from home. They're just a hair outside the top 100 when they are at home, so that's a little bit of an issue. And this St. Peter's team, in terms of percentage of their missed shots that result in an offensive rebound, they are currently in games played away from home third, with 37.6% of their misses becoming an offensive rebound. You've been able to have Brett Bland be able to step up and be one of the main guys for the team. He's supplying the team with double figures. Again, not a guy that's really going to light you up from three-point range, but at 37%, that's pretty much the only guy other than Eric Morgan Jr. who's been in and out of the lineup all season long, shooting above 31.5% from three for the team. TJ Robinson, along with Bryce Eaton, they combine for about 21.5 points per game. Both do shoot above 77% of the free throw line. That's one thing St. Peter's has going for them. Each of their top 4 scorers shoot at least 77% at the charity stripe. So they've done an okay job there. They're about a country average team in terms of taking care of the ball. And then on the flip side for Siena, you've been able to get great production out of Gavin Doty, 17.5 points, throws in there about 7 boards, shoots about 33% per 3, and just as shows, do-it-all point guard, 4.5 assists, 13 points, steal and a half, shoots 36% from 3-point. Siena in a pressure spot, they shoot about 75% of the free throw line. That is a top 100 mark in the country, and they've been solid with regards to their shooting percentages. Country average with opponents' 3-point shooting percentage, top 135 team with both their own 2-point shooting percentage and opponents' 2-point shooting percentage, but the way that St. Peter's racks up second and third chances and the way that they generate turnovers, I think makes this game a slog and allows them to hold in there. So set a total of 133. I like the under, and with St. Peter's, won't take anything above 3 points with them. 843, 844. Towson is on the road against Drexel, and the Dragons of Drexel do find themselves as home underdogs of 2.5 points. 132.5 is the total. Semi-total of 125. I'm going to be in on the under. These two teams are looking to play almighty slogs of games. As for Towson, in terms of total possessions per game, and there are 365 Division I teams, by the way, they are checking in 349th. Meanwhile, Drexel is 333rd, and Drexel 279th in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. Towson is 286th. And Towson games do not involve any made three-pointers. They are 58th in the country, and opponent's three-point shooting percentage at 31.7%. They shoot 28.1% from three. That's a bottom 5 mark in all of college basketball, and there's no trusting in either team at the free throw line. Towson shoots 68% of the charity stripes outside the top 315 there. Drexel is less than 65.5%. They're in the bottom 30 in the country. You've got Tyler Teata for Towson, who actually shoots 87% of the free throw line. He throws in there 17 points per game. Then Dylan Williamson, he's up to 14.5 points, 3.5 assists per contest. Jack Dombia is able to give you about 5.5 rebounds per game. And that's the one thing that Towson has going for them. They do a really good job in terms of giving themselves second and third chances. 23rd in the country overall in terms of percentage of missed shots that result in an offensive rebound in a road/neutral court venue. That actually goes up to 13th. Meanwhile, Drexel is more around about 159th there actually well outside the top 225 at home. Away from home, they ascended to the top 100. And for Drexel, it's very much a whole is greater than some of its parts collective outside of their main shooter in Shane Blakeney. Shoots 35% from three, 14 points, 5 rebounds per game. Drexel, though, they're just 258th in the country in terms of their 2-point shooting percentage. They actually shoot it better from 3 points. They shoot 35%. That's a top 150 mark in the country. But again, they don't shoot it well at the free throw line. This is a Drexel team that has been rock solid with regards to their opponents' shooting percentages as well. They're in the top 65 with regards to opponents' 2-point and 3-point shooting percentage. And you've got a lot of guys that just give you between 8.5 and 9.5 points per game. Victor Panoff, Eli Beard, Kevin Vanderhorst, along with Josh Reed. They all do that. And then with Panoff, he's able to give you about 5 boards, shoots 36% from 3. Beard shoots 43.5% from 3. But in a game that is going to be very, very low-tempoed, you've got a Drexel team that does not take care of the ball, 12.5 turnovers per game. They're outside the top 290 in terms of turnovers on a per-possession basis. I do think that Towson is able to just do enough to get the job done here, but I could only set my line at 1 because, again, are they going to be able to cover at the free throw line? So I was pretty much going to put myself on the side of the points in this one. I set Towson as a 1-point favorite, so seeing Drexel at 2.5, I'm going to be willing to take the points, but on the money line. I like the under semi-total of 125, 845, 846 Fairfield. They're on the road against Quinnipiac, and Quinnipiac is a 5.5 to a 6-point favorite. So on this game, up to 148.5 from the opener of 146, and I did set my total at 145.5, so agreed with the opener. Now that we're up past 146, I'm going to be in on the under. You've got a Fairfield team that's looking to play relatively slowly, 261st in the country in terms of total possessions per game. Quinnipiac a bit faster, 133rd, and it's a Quinnipiac team that's doing a nice job in terms of giving themselves second and third chances. In games played at home, they're grabbing 36% of their misses as an offensive rebound. That is a top 50 mark in the country. Fairfield supreme in terms of giving themselves second and third chances away from home, and road and neutral court games, they grab 35.5% of their missed shots as an offensive rebound. That is 16th in all of college basketball. And Fairfield is not a great shooting team. They're well outside the top 265 with regards to their 2-point shooting percentage, but they're doing a nice job in terms of maximizing possessions because they rank 54th in the country in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis. Quinnipiac, a home team, about 153rd in the country, and in games played at home, that falls outside the top 180. For Quinnipiac, you've had Amari Monroe do a nice job down low, 15.5 points, 8.5 rebounds per game, and then you've got Gene Zimmerman, who's your top scorer, shooting about 35% from 3, 16 points per contest. Graham Randall throws in there about 6.5 rebounds per game, and for this Quinnipiac team, they are outside the top 225 with regards to their defensive rebound percentage, so they will give up second and third chances. They're stout down low. They're a top 50 team with regards to opponents' 2-point shooting percentage. They are going to give it up a little bit from the outside, and with this Fairfield team being actually much better with their 3-point shooting rather than their 2-point shooting, as Fairfield about 189th in the country with regards to their 3-point shooting percentage, hovering right around about 34%. In Quinnipiac, they themselves shoot about 34.5% from 3, which ironically enough goes down to 32.7% when they're at home. I do think that that's going to be able to help out this Fairfield team, and for Fairfield, this is a squad that has been a little bit like today's goal with their 3-point shooting percentage. At home, they allow opponents to shoot 29.8% from 3-point range. Away from home, teams are shooting 38.8% from the outside, so that's going to be a little bit of an issue for them, but they do a nice job in terms of hunkering down low as well. They do find themselves in the top 145 with regards to opponents' 2-point shooting percentage, and again, with Fairfield, you've got a team that does a really good job in terms of being able to hit the boards. You've got Brandon Benjamin, Declan Wolfinger, who combine for 18.1 rebounds per game. Between the two of them, you get about 27 points per contest. Braden Sparks is that main scorer, 17.5 points. He shoots 41% from 3-point range. Pretty much the only of their top 7 scorers that shoots above 33% from 3-point range. Fairfield, not a team that gets to the free throw line often, but with the way that they're able to take care of the ball, with Fairfield being a relatively okay team with regards to their shooting percentages, I do think that they're going to do just enough to be able to hold in this game. And for Fairfield, I do think that the lack of 2-point shooting percentage is going to nip them in the bud in terms of being able to get an outright win, but set my line at 5.5, 6+, won't take the points with Fairfield, and I like the under. I set my total at a 145.5, 847, 848. Robert Morris is on the road against Wright State. Wright State hopes to beat the right side as they are currently 3.5 point favorites. So on this game, it is 146.5, and I did set my total at a 146.5, so waiting on a little bit of movement. I believe that I'm seeing out there 1 or 2 straight 147s, and at a 147, I would be willing to take a shot on the under, as it is a Wright State team that in their home games, they've been able to do a relatively solid job in terms of being able to generate turnovers. I will say this, they're also giving it up from 3-point range a little bit at home. For Wright State, right now they are allowing teams to shoot 36.2% from 3-point range at home. That goes on to 31.9% in their road/neutral court games. But for Wright State, they've had Michael Cooper be Mr. Right for them, as he's done a nice job being able to lead this offense, supplying about 13.5 to 14 points per game. And if you're looking at the quarterback of the defense, CJ Birch, 3.5 assists, 12 points per game, so he does a solid job on the offensive side of things, but 2.7 steals per game. And then Michael Everbrow has done a nice job down down low, about 6.5 rebounds, 12 points. It really doesn't give you a lot of three-point shooting, but you've got the ancillary guys. Dominic Pangonis, 9.5 points, shoots 41.5% for threes. Solomon Caglin, he's able to shoot about 37.5% from the outside. And the big key for Wright State is going to be not allowing second and third chances. That's where the bread has been buttered for Robert Morris. They're a top 15 team in the country in terms of percentage of their missed shots that result in an offensive rebound. It has been a Robert Morris team that's really had a nice come up with regards to their three-point shooting as well. For Robert Morris, right now they are 18th in the country, shooting 38.1% from the outside. It does fall to about 35.7% when they're away from home, but it's a Robert Morris team that they're relatively slow at about 248th in terms of total possessions per game, and they've had their turnover issues. They've been outside the top 235 in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis, but when they don't turn it over and they're able to get shots up, they grab second and third chances when they miss them, and then they are able to knock down their shots as well with Deshaun Good, Ryan Prather, both give you about 15.5 points per game. Good as Mayos Fly with about 8.5 boards, so shoots 60% from three-point. Prather up to about 36.5% from the outside, and then Albert Vargas has been able to give you a little bit of facilitation with about 4 assists per game. Nicolas Chatakulis, 7.5 boards, 11 points per game, so you're in a very interesting circumstance involving two teams that aren't really looking to push a ton of tempo. Again, Robert Morris about 248th in terms of total possessions per game. Wright State is about 189th, but in the end, I do think that Wright State is going to iron out with regards to that home and road split with regards to their three-point shooting defense. But that said, I do think that Robert Morris, with the way that they grab second and third chances, allows them to hold in there. So semi-line at a 2.5 at 3+. We'll take the points with Robert Morris, and at a 147+, I'm going to be in on that under 849, 850. You've got Fort Wayne, and they're going to be on the road against Cleveland State. Cleveland State does find themselves as a home underdog here of between 2 to 2.5 points. 160.5 to 161.5 is the total. Semi total 156.5. I like the under. Now, Cleveland State, a really good three-point shooting team. Overall for the season, they're checking in 22nd in the country. That actually falls to about 36.4% at home compared to 38.5% away from home, but the ball security has been an issue for this team. They're outside the top 275 in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis, and Purdue Fort Wayne in games played away from home, they're a top 25 team in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis, while they themselves do a nice job taking care of the ball. 39th in the country in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis. Now you've got a pair of teams that are not going to give themselves any sort of second and third chances with Purdue Fort Wayne. In terms of percentage of their missed shots that result in an offensive rebound, bottom 10 mark in all of college basketball, with only about 19.5% of misses becoming an offensive rebound. Cleveland State is 299, so both teams who have their deficiencies there. And Fort Wayne, I did set as a 2.5 point favorite. I'd be willing to lay up to a deuce with them because you do have a trio of guys. They're like Corey Hednon, 20.5 points, shoots 34.5% from three. Mikael Stevenson, 14.5 points, 3 boards, 3 assists. He's been able to shoot 36% from three, and DeAndre 3000 Craig is a 39.5% three-point shooter. Now, it is a classic gamble for turnovers team here with Purdue Fort Wayne, because if they don't get a turnover, they're outside the top 295 in terms of both opponents' 2-point and 3-point shooting percentage. So they're well outside the top 275 in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, and they are dead stinking last in the country, depending upon the day that you look, either 364th or 365th in terms of overall rebound percentage. So that does mean that this bunch in Cleveland State should have an edge here. But you also have a Cleveland State offense that's not executing the same way inside as Purdue Fort Wayne. As right now for Cleveland State, about 185th in the country with regards to their 2-point shooting percentage. Purdue Fort Wayne has been 110th as well, so you're in a little bit of an interesting predicament here. If you take a look at the free throw shooting of both of these teams, with Purdue Fort Wayne at the charity stripe, they're about 213th in the country, which actually improves 74% away from home compared to about 69% at home. Cleveland State has actually been very rock solid. They shoot 79% at the free throw line in their home games, but I do think that with Purdue Fort Wayne, even though they're at a disadvantage on the glass, the way that they generate turnovers, that allows them to be able to do just enough to be able to get the job done in this ordeal. I did set Purdue Fort Wayne as a result as a favorite of 2.5 points. So with Purdue Fort Wayne, I'm going to be willing to take a shot on them. I'm going to be willing to lay up to 2, and I'm going to be in on this total under as well. I set my total at a 156F, 851, 852. You've got Niagara. They're going to be on the road against Ryder, and Ryder is a home underdog of 1.5 points. John's game 130.5. I actually set Ryder as a 1.5 point favorite. I'm going to be taking a shot on the money line, mainly because this is a Niagara team that they're built around 3-point shooting, and their 3-point shooting falls off a massive cliff when they're away from home. Niagara is shooting 39.9% from 3-point at home, 29.2% away from home, and I recognize how bad this Ryder team is. They're outside the top 340 in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, outside the top 330 in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, and for Ryder, they're 361st in the country with with their three-point shooting percentage. They shoot 29.5% for three-point range at home, so both of these teams on relatively equal footing there. The one thing that Rider is going to be able to do that Niagara doesn't, grab second and third chances. Niagara, right now they're grabbing 21.4% of their missed shots as an offensive rebound, 348th. Riders are respectable 103rd. They grab 31% of their misses as an offensive rebound, and right now for Niagara, they've been dealing with an injury to their top scorers. You've been getting about 12 points to an assists per game out of Justin Page. He's been missing the last 6 games. That means you don't have a single guy on the roster that's giving you over 8.1 points per game. Now, we'll say Trenton Walters along with Justin Hawkins, they both give you between 8 and 8.1 points per game. They combine for 5 assists. These two guys combined to shoot 38.2% from 3, so they've been relatively rock solid there, but you don't have a single guy on the roster that gives you over 5 rebounds per game, as Will Short, Josiah Sabino both give you between 4.6 and 4.7 rebounds per game. Lone two guys on the roster that give you over 3.3 rebounds per game, and while this Rider team is just rough in terms of so many different aspects, they're also a bottom 10 team with their 2-point shooting percentage. Those second and third chances I think are going to be big. Caleb Smith gives you 7.7 rebounds per game. Shamari Fuller, 6.5 points, 6 rebounds per game, and then your top 2 scorers, Zion Cruz, Flash Burton. These two guys have been able to combine for about 27.5 points per game. It's a Rider team that in a pressure spot. They shoot 68.8% at the free throw line. They themselves give up a lot of second and third chances. They're not going to put you under duress. They're outside the top 3 in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis, but it's a Niagara team that's well outside the top 250 themselves in terms of generating turnovers. Niagara outside the top 260 with regards to opponents' 2-point and 3-point shooting percentage as well. Niagara in a pressure spot, they shoot about 72.5% at the free throw line, and you got a pair of teams that are looking to slog games up. Rider is 337th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. Niagara is 362nd, so very interesting ordeal. I think that home court advantage does just enough for a Rider team that has been eliminated from the Metro Atlantic tournament to get a win and show a little bit of pride. I semi-total here at a 130.5. We're right now seeing a lot of between 130.5. I saw as high as a 131.5 out there. At a 131 or higher, I'm in on the under, and I'd like Rider on the money line, set them as the slim 1.5 point favorite. 853, 854, you've got Marist, and they're going to be playing us at Sacred Heart. Sacred Heart is a underdog here of 7.5 to 8 points. Total is 146.5, and with Sacred Heart, I set them as an underdog of 9 points. I'm going to be one to lay it. This Marist defense just continues to be so rock solid. Top 10 team in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. That ascends a 5th in their home games, and Marist does a great job in terms of putting you under duress. They are a top 35 team in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis, and that's really the kryptonite that you've got for the Sacred Heart group. Sacred Heart, in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis, they are outside the top 230 in the country. They've been a solid 3-point shooting team as they take over 50% of their field goal attempts from 3-point range. They shoot 36.3% from 3, and that's even with Anquan Hill down to about 34% 3-point shooting. After that was 40+% last season. Dealt with injury. He's come back, and he's been much better recently, and for Sacred Heart, it travels relatively well. They shoot 36% overall from 3, only about 35.2% away from home, so not much of a drop-off there. And then you've got Deshaun Gittins, who gives you 14 points per game, so he's getting it at 42% 3-point shooting. Now Ralph Byer along with Jan Farrell, they combine to be able to give you about 25.5 points per game, and both of these guys shoot 40+% from 3-point range. To the credit of the Sacred Heart team as well, Hill, Byer, and Farrell all shoot at least 78% of the free throw line. They're a team that shoots 78% of the charity stripe, but let's say that Marist needs to cover at the free throw line. They're actually a top 10 team themselves with their free throw shooting percentage. They are a team that's well outside the top 150 in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, as they're outside the top 200 with their 2-point shooting percentage. They only shoot about 32.5% from the outside, but you've got a Sacred Heart team that's outside the top 285 as well in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, but 79.7%. That's a top 5 mark with Rajon Blackwell leading the way for this Marist team. He supplies 12.5 points, shoots 36% from the Elijah Lewis, a little bit of a do-it-all guy, 12 points, a steal, 4.5 rebounds, 2 assists per game, and Justin Menard, well, my dad is a Menard shopper, save my big money at Menards, and you make big money when you trust in him at the point guard spot. 4 assists, 12 points per contest, like what he's able to bring to the table, and then you get about 5.5 rebounds, a pair of assists, a steal per game. Jaden Daughtry, who just does a little bit of this and that. I think the Marist is going to do a nice job controlling the tenor of this game, and I mentioned how Sacred Heart, they love to be able to take a lot of shots from 3-point range. Well, guess what the forte of this Marist team is? In terms of opponents' 3-point shooting percentage, they are second in the country. In their home games, teams are shooting 22.3% from 3. Made my total a 141. I'm in on the under, and I'm laying it with Marist. I set them as a favorite of 9 points, 855, 856. Canisius is on the road against Mount St. Mary's, and the Mount does find themselves as a pretty good size favorite here of 8.5 points. Their total on this game, it is 134.5. I set my line at 6.5. I'm going to be willing to take the points with Canisius. Both of these teams are having all sorts of turnover issues, but for Mount St. Mary's, they're even worse. For Canisius, they're 332nd in the country in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis. basis. Mount St. Mary's 364th out of 365 teams in terms of taking care of the ball. Now, for Canisius, they are a team that has been able to have a little bit of success with regards to their three-point shooting. This is a team that, from three-point shoot about 33.6%, falls to 32.4% away from home. That's a top 200 mark in the country, and for Mount St. Mary's, this is a team that has built a little bit more on the inside. They're actually a top 45 team in terms of opponents' two-point shooting percentage. They themselves only shoot about 31.5% from three-point at home. It actually rises to 34% when they're away from home, but I do think that for this Canisius team, they're going to be able to do just enough to hold in there, as neither of these teams are really putting you under duress either. So you've got a pair of teams with turnover issues, and a pair of defenses are outside the top 260 in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. But I like the main two guys for Canisius. Khalil Singleton, 13.5 points, shoots 38.5% from three. Brian Nadanja, 13.5 points. He shoots 33% from the outside. You've had Anthony Beard, when he's been out there, be able to shoot it really well from 3 points for Canisius, but unfortunately, he's currently on the full, so it doesn't help you out. But Michael Everbrow has been supplying the team with about 7 boards, a little bit over per game, and you have been able to have Javonte Edwards rise up a little bit more as well. He's been able to give you a pair of assists, so that helps out the facilitation of this team, and they've been a country average team with regards to opponents' three-point shooting percentage. Meanwhile, for Mount St. Mary's, you do have a guy in Xavier Lipscomb who's got really good versatility. He's been in college basketball for seemingly 500 years. 9.5 points, 4.5 boards, 4 assists, steal per contest, shoots 35% from three, and Orlandis Keys is your main scorer with about 12 points. He shoots about 37% from 3 points. You're not going to get an up-tempo game. Mount St. Mary's is about 230th in terms of total possessions per game. Canisius, they're one of the slowest teams that you're going to find in all of college basketball. They clock in at about 348th in the country in terms of total possessions per game, and with Luke McKeldin being able to give you about 6 boards, 11.5 points per game. It is a Mount St. Mary's team that should have a little bit of an edge on the glass, but let's say that you get into late game free throw shooting. Mount St. Mary's shoots 67% at the free throw line. That is a bottom 30 mark in all of college basketball. Canisius, I recognize that it's not great, but that goes up to about 70.9% at the charity stripe. I do think that this is going to be a game that's going to involve a lot of sloppiness, not a ton of possession, so I like the under semi total 131.5, and with Canisius won't take the points, made them a 6.5 point underdog. 857-858, UW Milwaukee is on the road against Oakland, and Oakland does find themselves as a favorite here of 6.5 to 7 points. 160.5 to 161.5 is the total. I'm going to be willing to lay with Oakland. I did set them as a 6.5 point favorite. You're still dealing with the injury to Danilo Jovanovic. If you're UW Milwaukee, that's a big giant issue for the team, as he was a do-it-all sort of big man that was supplying the team with 12.5 points, 6 boards, pair of assists per game. Right now, if you're looking at healthy players, your top rebounders out, Aaron Franklin, who's been solid, 6.5 points, 6.3 boards, a steal per contest, and then you got Faison Fields back after he was missing for 10 games. He's up to about 6 boards. Really doesn't give you a lot of scoring, though, and for UW Milwaukee, the forte of this team has been their rebounding. They're overall a top 150 team with regards to rebound percentage on the offensive glass. They've been a top 100 team in terms of percentage of their best shots that result in an offensive rebound, and while you've got Amari Uyugard, who's been able to give you 13 points per game, it's not a team that shoots it really well from three. UW Milwaukee, 260th in the country. We'll say that goes into the top 200 away from home. They're shooting about 34.2% from the outside, but it's a Milwaukee team that's been absolutely ghastly on defense, and really both of these teams have been. UW Milwaukee 325th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. Oakland is 327th. Oakland has been a little bit better with their perimeter defense than they have been in the past, though, and for Oakland, I do think that they're going to be able to do a nice job down low in terms of not allowing second and third chances, as you've got Barry Navarula, who's been able to give you 13 points, 6 rebounds per game. Michael Hoagie is up to about 6 boards, 13.5 points per game. Isaac Garrett, 14.5 points, 7 boards per contest. Now, this has been an Oakland team that's been outside the top 300 with regards to defensive rebound percentage, but again, having all the ailments that you do, that really hurts this UW Milwaukee team in terms of generating those second and third chances. And for this Oakland team, they've been a top 100 team at home with regards to their own 2-point shooting percentages. Milwaukee is outside the top 300 with regards to both opponents' 2-point and 3-point shooting percentage. Brody Robinson is going to be the best point guard in this game, 17 points, 6.5 assists per game, shoots 34.5% per game. And both of these teams are top 85 teams in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis, but Oakland is a team that does a great job in terms of winning the foul battle, top 75 team in terms of getting to the free throw line. They shoot 75.5% at the charity stripe, and they're a top 20 team in terms of fewest free throw attempts allowed on a per possession basis. And this UW Milwaukee team, they only shoot about 69% at the free throw line. I do think that the injuries catch up to Milwaukee or so. I did set Oakland as an 8.5 point favorite, want to lay the number. Think that this is just close enough for late game fouls, and you do have an Oakland team that's playing up tempo, 66 in terms of total possessions per game, so set a total of 162.5 at a 162 or less. I like the over. 859, 860. Florian Leineck is on the road against North Texas. North Texas, 2.5 to 3 point 1.5-point favorite. So on this game, it is 139.5, and I made Florida Atlantic the 1.5-point favorite. I'm going to take them outright on the money line. It is a Florida Atlantic team that has been playing a little bit more up-tempo here recently. They're up to about 50th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. Started slow. They've really been able to speed up, and this is a North Texas team that 268th in terms of total possessions per game is actually faster than what they have been for much of the season. North Texas, really good defense, 36th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, outside the top 300 in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. And this Florida Atlantic team has actually seen a little bit of a come up with their defense. Last year, they were absolutely awful in terms of guarding the three-point line. A little bit more respectable this year. They're up to about 109th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. And the key for them is going to be guarding the inside, because North Texas is not sinking any threes whatsoever. They're 360th in the country. They shoot 28.1% from three-point range, but Florida Atlantic, 62nd in the country in terms of opponents' two-point shooting percentage. Rock solid there. It's a North Texas team that's about 93rd, but for Florida Atlantic, it is big that they've got Cannon Carlisle back. That's been really their number 2 scorer throughout much of the season. He supplies you with 13.5 points, 3 assists per game, hot and cold three-point shooter, and Devin Vanderpool, he's a little bit more of the concept with that regard. 16 points, 6 boards, 2.5 assists, Iona per contest, shoots 35% for 3. Isaiah E. Holman has been able to give you 13 points. He shoots 39% from the outside, but this team is very stout with regards to shot blocking, with Devin Williams giving you 3 blocks per contest. Florida Atlantic has had a tough time taking care of the ball. They're outside the top 230 with regards to ball security. North Texas is right there in the same boat, though, and North Texas is a better turnover team. They're a top 35 team in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis, and North Texas does have a 17-point per game scorer in Jashawn Stevenson, who's been able to do a nice job at the free throw line at 82%, but in a pressure spot as a whole, they only shoot 70% at the charity stripe. It is a North Texas team that, along with their bad three-point shooting, they're outside the top 275 with their own two-point shooting percentage as well. That's an issue. Now, they do a great job in terms of guarding the arc. Their line teams only shoot about 30% for 3. That is a top 30 mark in the country, and you've got David Terrell, who's been able to give you 13 points per contest, but I just think that with North Texas doing a not-so-great job in terms of allowing second and third chances, Florida Atlantic is in the top 65 with regards to defensive rebound percentage. North Texas, they're outside the top 280. I think that that's going to be the difference in this game. I do think that's going to be a slow-down game where points are going to be at a little bit of a premium, and you are going to have quite a few turnovers. So I told 137.5, like the under, and Florida Atlantic here on the money line, 861, 862. You've got Iowa on the road against Wisconsin, and Wisconsin is a favorite of 2.5 points total on this game, anywhere between 145.5 to a 147, and I do like the under. I set my total at a 145.5, but that said, with Wisconsin, I'm going to be willing to lay with them. Iowa is a slow but very efficient team. In terms of total possessions per game, Iowa 363rd in all of college basketball, and if you look at games played away from home, they are 365th out of 365 teams for Iowa. They've been able to do a relatively rock-solid job on defense. They're a top 50 team in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. They've been much better with their perimeter defense and their interior defense. Top 50 team with regards to opponents' three-point shooting percentage. More on 242nd with regards to opponents' two-point shooting percentage, but really the forte of this Iowa team has been generating turnovers. It says right now, in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis on defense, they're a top 20 team, but Wisconsin, they're a top 20 team in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis, and I really do think that the little things are going to win out for Wisconsin. They're shooting 77% free throw line, top 30 mark in the country. That goes up to 79.1% at home. They're a top 50 team with regards to defensive rebound percentage as well, and then you've got 2 feature guys, Nick Boyd, John Blackwell, that combine for 39.1 points per game between the two of them. They shoot 37% for 3. Now, the good three-point shooting defense of Iowa is big because Wisconsin, they take over 50% of their field goal attempts from three-point range. That is a top 20 percentage in all of college basketball, but even if they do need to kick it inside, this has been a team that's been a top 85 team with their two-point shooting percentage as well. Austin Rappo is dealing with a little bit of an injury, is back. He's a forward that gives you about 9 points, 4 rebounds per game. Nolan Winter makes it feel chilly for opponents with 13.5 points, 9 boards. He gives you a pair of assists per game as well. And Andrew Rohde has been able to give you some nice facilitation as well. On the flip side for Iowa, it's been the Bennett Sturts show for them. He has been incredible with 20.5 points, 4.5 assists, 2.5 per contest, and with how slow they play, 20.5 points per game. It's that slow of an offense. I mean, man, that is incredible. Shoots 39.5% from 3. You've got Tavion Banks shooting 45% from the outside. Alvaro Fogurius has been able to give you 8 points as a 6'9", little bit of a combo player. He's been rock solid as well. And this is a Wisconsin team that is going to give it up a little bit on defense in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. They are 170th in the country, but they always have very demonstrative home and road splits. For Wisconsin, they are giving up 14.1 points fewer per 100 possessions at home rather than away from them. And it has been a team that has been a little bit lackadaisical in terms of giving it up from three-point range. Right now, Wisconsin, their line teams to shoot 33.5% from 3, but 37.8% away from home, 30.1% at home. I do think that Wisconsin finds a way at the free throw line to cover this game and get the job done. Set my line at 5.5. I'm going to be willing to lay with Wisconsin, and I'm in on the under semi-total 145.5. This is the last game on the normal Las Vegas betting board before we get the extra games, 863, 864. Tulsa is going to be playing against the UT San Antonio, and meet the Roadrunners. Well, they are a massive underdog here of 22.5 to 23 points. Your total, it is 158.5, and I do like the over. Semi-total 162.5. UTSA in games played away from home, they're actually 72nd in the country in terms of total possessions per game. They're playing up tempo, and they are currently outside the top 330 in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. That's not great, to say the least. And for UT San Antonio, even though it is a group that is overall 355th in the country in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, they've actually been much better with their offense when they've been away from home. In road or neutral court games, they're currently averaging 6.9 points more per 100 possessions than when they are at home, and they've got a nice double-figure score in Jameer Simpson. 16 points, 4 boards, a steal, a pair of assists per game. Now, this team is awful with their three-point shooting. Brent Moss shoots 33.6% from three. He's the lone guy on the roster that shoots about 31.5% from three-point range. UTSA, to their credit, they are going to give themselves a few second and third chances, and boy, oh boy, are they going to give you second chances. As in terms of defensive rebound percentage, UTSA 361st in the country. In games played away from home, opponents are grabbing 38.6% of their missed shots as an offensive rebound. Meanwhile, them on the offensive glass, it's honestly not bad, as you've been able to get a few rebounds out of your mixers and shakers on this team, as you've been able to get right around about 5.5 rebounds per game out of Babacar Njai, who throws in their 9 points per game. Caden Rayfield, he gives you about 5 boards, 7 points per game. Boss, who I mentioned a little bit before, he's been able to give you over 4.5 rebounds per game as well. So you got quite a few guys that do a solid job there, and it's a Tulsa team that they're neither here nor there with their offensive rebound percentage. UTSA is a top 225 team with this regard. Tulsa, they're about 170th, but for Tulsa, they just sink their first shot. They're 17th in the country in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. In terms of that three-point shooting percentage, it is right now 39.5%, goes up to 40.3% when they're at home, and Miles Barnstable has been a big reason why he's able to give you 14 points per game overall for the season, shooting in that neighborhood about 42.5% from three. David Green for the season shoots 37.5% from three. In conference play, that's one up to 44.8% from the outside, 16 points, 4.5 rebounds per game. And it's a Tulsa team that's actually been pretty solid on the defensive glass as well. You don't have these guys giving you a ton of scoring, but Tyler Barron along with Ian Smichael, they've been able to combine for about 8.5 rebounds per game and about 9.5 points per game. They do a nice job shoring things up down low, and then you've been able to get really good three-point shooting as well out of Tylen Riley, 14.5 points. He shoots 41% from three. Tulsa is shooting 78.2% of the free throw line. That's a top 20 mark in the country, and it's a UTSA team that they will put you on the free throw line. They're a top 100 team in terms of free throw attempts allowed on a per possession basis. I think that Tulsa just absolutely mops the floor in this game, and with them being as efficient as they are on offense, they get the job done for the over. So set my line at 24.5, we'll delay up to 24 with Tulsa, and I like the over set by total 162.5, and now we eat the extra games.
The normal betting board picks are complete, but there are some extra games today, so we go into the bonus.
306-583, 306-584, it is Boston U, and they're going to be on the road against Lehigh, and Lehigh does find themselves as a very slim home underdog here of 1 to 1.5 points. Draw this game, it is anywhere between 143 to 143.5. I made a total of a 143.5, so 143 is my max buy point on the over. This, despite the fact that Boston U is a super slow team. They're about 325th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. Lehigh, more of a mid-tempo team, 169th in the country in terms of total possessions per game, and it's a Lehigh team that's been getting absolutely dump trucked down the glass. They're outside the top 320 with regards to rebound percentage, but the reason why I like Lehigh in this spot is that Boston U's forte has been three-point shooting. This Boston U team, they are 9th in the country, shooting 39.4% from three-point, and it's not necessarily the most supreme Lehigh defense in the world, and that's a big reason why I'm in on the over, as Lehigh, in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, right now they're 223rd in the country, but they don't allow three-point shots. Even though they're getting absolutely plowed on the glass and everything like that, you take a look at this Lehigh team, and they've actually been a top 150 team with regards to opponents' two-point shooting percentage as well, but in terms of percentage of opponents' field goal attempts that come from three-point, that's 31.1%. That's the 9th lowest percentage in all of college basketball. Meanwhile, it's a Boston U team that they're about 250th with this regard, and it's a Lehigh team that has this year Whitlock, who's been able to give you nearly 20 points per game, shoots the high 30s from three-point. Hank Alvey has actually shot over 40% for three on low volume, but he's been able to give you 14 plus points, 7 plus rebounds per game. And it's a Lehigh team that at home, they shoot 36.7% from the outside overall for the season. They're shooting above 35% per three, top 125 mark in the country. You've had Joshua Ingram step up, be able to give you 10.5 points, 5 boards, 3 assists per game. In a pressure spot, Lehigh shoots about 72.5% at the free throw line. That's right around about country average, and they've been a country average team with their own 2-point shooting percentage as well. Meanwhile, for Boston U, they do a nice job not allowing second and third chances. They've been a top 100 team in terms of defense rebound percentage, but Lehigh is not giving themselves any second and third chances to begin with, and it's a Boston U team that's getting absolutely blowtorched with regards to their 3-point shooting defense, even though they're really amazing with regards to being able to sink their 3-point shots, and they're playing super duper slow. They are allowing teams to shoot 37.4% from 3-point range. That is 345th in the country. You've got Michael Air McNair shooting 46% from 3, 17 points per contest. Chance Gladen actually shoots 89% of the free throw line, 13.5 points. He only shoots 30% from 3, same Uso, 40% 3-point shooter, 80% free throw shooter, 10 points per contest. I think that you're going to get a slow but very efficient game on offense. Boston U does not put you under any sort of duress whatsoever. Bottom 15 team in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis, and I think that Lehigh is able to get the job done against a very, very leaky defense. So I did set my line at 1.5. I like Lehigh on the money line, and at a 143 or less in on the over, 3 of 6.585, 3 of 6.586. American is on the road against Lafayette. Lafayette, a home underdog of 4.5 points. 140.5 is the total, and made a total of 136.5. I like the under. You're just not going to get a lot of possessions in this game. American, 285th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. Lafayette, 281st. So these two teams are playing at very much the same tempo. Lafayette has not been a great 3-point shooting team, especially at home. At home, they shoot 29.5% from 3, 34.2% when they're away from home. It's an American team that the ancillary pieces have been able to shoot it quite well from 3, and they do shoot about 34.5% from 3 compared to 31.5% at home. I have no idea why, but you've got some very funky home and road splits in this conference, and let's say that you need to cover at the free throw line. American does shoot 76.5% of the free throw line, to their credit, but it's also an American team that they just have not been able to do a great job in terms of guarding down low, and that's where Lafayette really has their bread buttered. For American, this team is 270th in the country with regards to opponents' 2-point shooting percentage. Meanwhile, you've got a Lafayette team that's more around about 250th, and for Lafayette, they are built around two main guys. As no, it's not the Bears quarterback, but you've got Caleb Williams, who's done a nice job, give you a 16.5 points, 3.5 boards, 3.5 assists per game, shoots 34.5% per 3, and then Andrew Phillips, 14.5 points per game. It's a Lafayette team that has been a top 150 team with regards to fewest turnovers on a per possession basis on offense, and that's very important because for this American team, one of the biggest things for them has been the fact that they have been doing a really good job in terms of generating turnovers. This American team, in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis, is a top 60 group in all of college basketball. You've got Mark Butler, who's been able to give you 4 assists, right around about 10 points per game, and then on the flip side for American, you've been able to get quite a bit of production out of Jeff Spruce in the backcourt, 9 points per game. He's shooting about 39% from 3-point range. Jalen Ita is up to about 10.5 points, 5 rebounds per game. And then your top two scorers really don't shoot it well from 3. Maiden Collins, Greg Jones, they combine to shoot about 25% for 3. Between the two of them, you're getting about 26 points per game, 9.5 boards. Both give you 2.1 assists per game, and they combine for about 2.5 steals per game. So that's been pretty rock solid. But that said, this is an American team that they are a little bit vulnerable down low, and they're not going to give themselves second and third chances. This team is outside the top 250 with regards to their offensive rebound percentage. We'll say they're not allowing opponents to be able to grab a lot of second and third chances either. And I think that that's going to be able to keep you under because neither of these teams are doing a great job with that regard. It's an American team that's 308th in the country in terms of percentage of their missed shots that result in an offensive rebound. Lafayette 314th, but I do think that with the way that Lafayette takes care of the ball, it's enough for them to hold in this game. So I'm line at 2.5. So taking the points here with Lafayette, and I'm in on the underside by total 136.5, and wrap things up with 306.587, 306.588. The bracket busting Bucknell Bison playoffs to Holy Cross, and Holy Cross is an underdog of 2.5 to 3 points. So on this game, it is 142.5. I'm in on the under. I set my total at a 142.5. Got a pair of teams that are not looking to push a lot of tempo right now, especially Holy Cross, 339th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. Bucknell's 260th, and Bucknell's doing a very bad job in terms of taking care of the ball. They are outside the top 315 in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis, and this Bucknell offense has just been ghastly. 329th in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. Holy Cross a little bit better at 275th, but last year this was a top 30 team in all of college basketball with regards to their 3-point shooting percentage, and that has fallen off a cliff. Now, Holy Cross shoots actually relatively well from 3-point range at home at 35.6%. Fall off is big away from home. That goes down to about 30.5%. Meanwhile, you got a Bucknell team that they're shooting 30.3% from 3-point range. That is 333rd in all of college basketball. I can only set Bucknell as a 1.5 point favorite, so I'm going to be willing to take the points with Holy Cross, even though they've been dealing with an injury to one of their main versatile pieces in Joe Nugent, 6'6" combo player. We have not seen him in the month of February, and he's your number 2 scorer with 12 points, and actually actually shoots 87% at the free throw line, but Tyler Boston, 36% three-point shooter, gives you about 13 points per game. You've got Gabe Warren and Aiden Dessou, who combine for 22 points per game between the two of them, about 9.5 rebounds per game, steal per contest, and for Holy Cross, you're not going to have any sort of second and third chances generated by this team, as they are a team that is outside the top 340 in terms of offensive rebound percentage. Now, Bucknell, in terms of defensive rebound percentage, is 265th, and Holy Cross, to their credit, they're not allowing sort of second and third chances. They're about 106th with regards to defensive rebound percentage. Meanwhile, you've got Amon Doris, who comes over from the country of Germany, stepping up for Bucknell, 15 points. He actually shoots 78% the free throw line, 32% from three-point range at about 6'10", so he's been solid. Riet by Jacques has been out of the fold for quite a while. He was your number 2 scorer, but you've got Archulay Spendone supplying about 6 boards, a steal and a half, 11.5 points per game. For Bucknell, they become a top 200 team in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. For Bucknell, they're absolutely giving it up from the outside. They're a bottom 15 team in the country with regards to opponents' three-point shooting percentage. That said, I do think that with Bucknell doing an okay job getting to the free throw line, they do shoot 77% of the free throw line. That might be just enough to be able to get the job done in this ordeal, and it's a Holy Cross team that they shoot at the free throw line 73.5%. They do not get to the free throw line often. They also don't put you on the free throw line often. So I think that you're in for a slog of a game that is going to be very, very ugly. And to help out Bucknell, Holy Cross outside the top 3 in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. So made a total of 135.5, like the under. And with Bucknell, can only make them 1.5 point favorites. So we'll take the 2+ here with Holy Cross. And that wraps things up for the Sunday edition of Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. If you do like what you're hearing from this fine podcast, Coast to Coast Hoops, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, whatever for this podcast, you have one or two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter /X timeline at GUNet_81. Keep in mind, letters EM, they mean does not matter. So, per usual, please do send these into the timeline, and the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review, and I'm with you guys every single day on this podcast, give you picks and analysis on every single game, every single day. So, I'll be back with you once again tomorrow, and obviously, big thanks to Curtis Rogers, who joined me in the second segment as well, and I'll be back with you guys once again on Monday. Thank you so much.